2025. What a year, Wiz, to be an AI engineer. So, I mean, how do you cover everything that matters to AI engineers in 2025? It's impossible, right? I mean, it's kind of a quick moving field, isn't it?
That's right. It's I've heard it's blast.
It's fully blasted. Now, would you say we're like peak hype now, or we've achieved it, or we're still on the up and up?
What a good question. I've thought we were peak hype many times.
Just keep going.
And the hype just keeps, bubbling up and up and up and up. For right now, it feels like we've hype plateaued a bit.
Yeah.
But we're one significant contribution away from getting right back on the hype train.
Right back on it. Yeah. So today, Wiz, we're going to cover what we believe in an opinionated way are the most important and interesting things that builders, AI engineers building production LLM applications need to understand at that practical edge of what's possible and what they should be doing at their jobs in 2026. So I've spent some time preparing a number of slides and topics today. No demo. We're just going to be chatting the whole time. So we invite everybody to go ahead and smash the chat. If you got questions, you got comments, you want to jump in. But by the end of this thing, Wiz, we'll answer the question, like, what do we really have to do to make sure that we not only get, but we keep our jobs as AI engineers in 2026? Our best guess, that's what people will get today. It's going to be a good one. You ready to kick this thing off?
I'm so ready to kick this thing off. I can't wait. It's going to be a blast.
It's going to be a blast. All right, Wiz, we'll see you back for a number of discussions today. Welcome, everybody, to the State of AI Engineering 2025. As mentioned, if you do have things you want to say, smash the chat, please, along the way. This one's going to be a little bit different than usual. We've got a very simple aim for you guys today. By the end of the sesh, we want to give you a wide-angle AI Makerspace style opinionated view of the most practical AI engineering relevant topics that we believe are most important for you to understand heading into 2026. Of course, there are an infinite number of topics we could cover, but here's what we break the categories down into. The state of AI engineering, maybe it's at the peak of its hype, but either way, probably it's going to come down and hit pretty hard at some point. There's a number of things related to the LLMs themselves. And so we're going to call this reasoning / open source / benchmarks. Of course, agents this year, the year of agents, the decade of agents. And of course, vibe coding. We're going to make sure we talk about the Vivity vibes and give you guys a real key insight into some of the things that are like some of the things we're actively struggling with as a company, and it seems that the whole industry is actively struggling with. And then ROI is the name of the game. What does that have to do with staying employed in 2026? It's getting crazy out here, especially as coders in the age of the vibes. So let's go ahead and introduce a few topics first. We did look at a number of really kind of well-known things, like the State of AI report that comes out every October. This is something that's been published annually since 2018. And honestly, the breadth of this thing has grown in scope so much that it almost is hard to find it super relevant if you have a particular specific domain you're interested in. And we are interested mostly in engineering these applications. So I'll just give you a brief overview. Research is probably the most relevant piece of this to us. And this is where we see the reasoning models. And they sort of said, okay, research has kind of been defined first and foremost by reasoning, this scaling out of test time compute, whether it's OpenAI, Goog's, Anthropic, DeepSeek. And then the open models. The open models have really pushed the US to get better at open. And of course, the benchmarks have continued to break down and then be reinvented to be harder. And also, we're seeing a specificity of domains. So that's kind of interesting as well. We'll talk about each of these in more detail. The rest of this stuff I'll just mention briefly. We're seeing revenue increase. NVIDIA at 4 trillion. I mean, unbelievable. We're seeing people talk about actual physical power needed for their insane gigawatt clusters that people are building. This is not really within the wheelhouse of people building production LM applications, so we won't spend too much time on it, nor is kind of the geopolitics of AI. Although the America First AI kind of vibe, we're starting to see people brand their models for the first time as American made. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. But otherwise, regulation is kind of not made a ton of progress in the US. And then AI certainly kind of going global has definitely happened as well, but the US definitely leads there. Safety overall is kind of just like, I don't know what's really happening with safety. And that's kind of the vibe of the report. The cyber criminals are enjoying this, and maybe it's a boon for them. This kind of security aspect is a little bit beyond the scope of what we want to cover today. But we are seeing, safety researchers leave the model labs. We are seeing the safety organizations that are being stood up not really get a ton of funding. And so it's kind of worth noting and paying attention to, but not really the sort of focus of our talk today. Okay, so let's talk about reasoning, open source models, and benchmarks. We can think about this as just the idea of scaling out test time compute, generally leveraging reasoning models. And the too long don't read on why it works is we get more tokens and we're kind of able to think these things through. When thinking is required, this is very useful. But of course, you can think too much, as we saw in the Illusion of Thinking paper from Apple, which we covered on this channel. So just a quick timeline here. The scaling of test time compute came out August last year. This paper, shortly after the O1 model from OpenAI came out. And then in January, of course, DeepSeek took the world by storm a bit. In the State of AI report, the model sequencing of these kind of reasoning models can kind of be seen here. DeepSeek and then Claude 3.7. This was sort of, we also saw that the 4.5 kind of have the sort of hybrid, can go back and forth mode. O3, 04 mini, Gemini 2.5 Pro thinking, and then GPT-5 kind of. And then the models are just kind of good at reasoning out of the box now. And if we dig down into the models, there's some interesting stuff happening, like reinforcement learning with verifiable rewards is a key way that we've seen this ability to train models so they're kind of better at reasoning. This term was coined in a paper from November of 2024 by the folks that built Tulu, the Allen AI Institute. And although it was coined then, it was kind of used also in the GRPO approach, the group relative policy optimization approach that actually made reasoning really good. And this happened in the DeepSeek math paper a little bit before the term was actually coined. That was actually in February of 2024. But DeepSeek R1 in January really made this a popular thing that people were talking about. And we noticed that like the way that you do this is you leverage data that's verifiable. So we started to see things like things that were clearly we can say that's right or that's wrong started to become more important. This is a kind of an older data set from Google called the instruction following evaluation set. But we saw things like the instruction following benchmark be released in 2025. And as you can see, it's just sort of harder. Instruction following is benchmark is harder than the IF eval. And if we put all of the benchmarks that are kind of like this together, we can sort of start to get this idea of kind of an intelligence index of sorts. You see the IF bench here. This is from artificial analysis. And so we're getting this kind of ability to think about general intelligence more kind of put together with a lot of these different, we've heard probably quite a few times on this channel of MMLU, the massive multitask language understanding data set, which keeps evolving, the GPQA data set. And, there's a lot of data sets we could look at, but we're kind of packaging all this stuff together. And we're realizing too that even some of the open source models are quite good. The open sourcing piece, we also saw OpenAI come out with their most recent open source piece with the GPT-OSS release in August. And, these models are kind of good at a number of things that make it feel kind of agentic: instruction following, tool use, reasoning, chain of thought, structured outputs, the classics. We also noticed that the architecture, they're officially making it clear, okay, it is MOE. Last year's State of AI was like, is GPT-4 like an MOE model? It's got to be an MOE model. Now we're seeing like, well, it's probably MOE. And not only are they performing well on tool use, function calling, reasoning, but also on kind of, we're seeing more of this domain specific data set stuff happening, like Health Bench that came out a little bit before, but they noted that the open source model is quite good at it. The architectures, though, as we're seeing this kind of evolution into mixture of experts, they haven't really changed a whole lot over the years, which is quite interesting. What has changed is maybe a bit more of the training stuff. As we talked about on this channel with the RC folks that build models and release the RC Foundation models, there's kind of a lot of interesting stuff happening, both with sourcing the data for models like this, like making sure it's really clean, making sure it's very trustworthy, making sure, it aligns with sort of American-made stamps, and, really not getting into any IP issues was a really big thing for them during that release. But we're also seeing kind of this evolution of training and the training paradigm. So yeah, there's a ton of data, do a ton of work to clean it up, focusing on reasoning and code gen. But then there's pre-training. There's also this kind of additional kind of mid-training and annealing piece before we get into the more, robust post-training pipelines. And then RC also made an interesting choice to just go fully open source in September, Apache 2.0 across the board. One of the things we do in class often towards the end of cohorts is we ask the whiz his opinions on best open source model options: small language model, large language model, large reasoning model, best overall, and best overall American made. And so, we'll kind of start the discussion here. We've got a number of models that we can consider, but I really just want to kind of, Wiz, start off with this idea of reasoning in general. Like when we think about building apps, how should we think about leveraging and using reasoning models in 2025? Are they like the standard, or really most of the time we don't need them, or all the models are good enough at reasoning that we don't even need to think about it anymore? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, so reasoning has been like a powerful pattern that we've kind of talked about a lot this particular year. The idea of reasoning is that it's very very powerful, but it's not always needed.
Yeah.
Certainly not always needed. There's a lot of stuff that we would refer to as just like let's call it execution, right? And that doesn't really need reasoning. Reasoning is great for planning. It's great for these more complex agent systems. But the thing you need to know is like reasoning is not, first of all, one size fits all. There's many different ways models can reason or effectively, emulate reasoning. And second, you most certainly don't always need it You, in fact, only need it sometimes, even though it feels good to use it all the time, which is,
It does feel pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like reasoning is also like, it's kind of your problem too, as the human, isn't it? Like to really think the damn thing through that you're doing. And if you use the model to help you, fine. But it's almost like it needs to be done. But does the model need to do it? You know, or should you be getting the plan together and then just having the model help you execute, like, you know, like automation has typically been used in the past, where, you know, we just let the AI and the automated systems do the stuff. We know exactly what they're doing. We don't let them just sort of take the wheel and do the whole thing for us.
Yeah, there's a, that's something that now we're able to do, which is let them take the wheel more. But
Yeah.
that we can doesn't mean we should,
Right.
of course, right? So reasoning is like a very powerful tool. It's a very addictive tool, right? But
Oh yeah.
it doesn't yet replace or match human reasoning, right? And so we should leverage it and help us automate tasks that we know are very well defined, very specific, but we shouldn't do more than that, right?
Yeah. And
It's
it costs
winning.
more.
It costs way more. It's winning medals and stuff. It's writing competition level code. That's dope, right? Heck yeah. But
Yeah.
humans have been doing that for the last 40 years, no probs too. So
Winning medals. Okay. Well, so when we think about open source models, though, what should we think about in terms of like selecting the best open source models? I mean, we've got sort of your list here of best default options today. Like when we kind of are doing development of AI application, we should first sort of get to the point where we're like, okay, I need an open source model, but you know, I'm not seeing llama on this list, Wiz, and this seems like a divergence from 2024 and what everybody expected. What else stands out to you in terms of models and open source models in particular, and what people should know about selecting the right ones for the job?
yeah, open source is having a big comeback. Let's go. We're open. Open weights are at least open weights are like the minimum for a lot of really great models these days. Obviously, you have your frontier model shops that are just like cranking out, these behemoths that are burning many hundreds of thousands of VC cash every day in order to get us access to some sweet intelligence. But the OSS models are crushing it. There's a lot of things that do go into how to select an OSS model. Obviously, what your environment is, so where you can run it, how you can run it, what your restrictions are based on geo, right? So there are some companies and organizations that have some exclusion principles as it relates to like running, as they're called, Chinese open source
Chinese
models.
models, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure the federal government doesn't want anything to do with those.
lots of stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's tools like artificial analysis and then, vibe checking that kind of determine what of the OSS models you're most excited by. You likely have some use case in mind when you're choosing a model. And the idea is that you should select a model that does well by default on those tasks. If you don't, that's a bit silly, right? So you can use tools like artificial analysis to determine what does that. Now, in terms of like just the best one, that's going to change based on your use case, obviously. But things like OSS, GPT OSS 120B are great for that, that kind of American-made bigger model. Nano 9B V2 from NVIDIA is great if you're looking for really fast, efficient modeling from an American shop that's totally open source. You see the list there. But the idea is choosing these is really just getting them in practice and running them through whatever evaluations you've built up to this point with any other model switch, right? And there are some things that might eliminate these on the face of them, like their size or the geo they come from.
Yeah. Okay, but generally, like, they've gotten a lot better
Oh
this year.
yeah.
Like, they're all pretty good. I mean,
bajillion% true.
so like, it's kind of like, if you pick one, it's probably pretty good. And like, that might not have been as true last year. So kind of cool to think about that. And while might maybe find Llama 3.1 in a lot of enterprises still, I kind of expect to see that change in 2026. What about you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're
Now,
right.
in terms of benchmarks, do we need to worry about these freaking things, or like, can we just let the model builders, the agent labs, worry about the benchies? Like, is this really kind of outside of our domain as AI engineers and builders? And like, first of all, that.
Yeah. So you should always care about benchmarking. You should always care about evaluation. When we say the word benchmark, okay, we could mean about 1,000 things.
Oh,
In this
okay,
case,
okay,
let's say like large scale common academic benchmarks. Okay.
okay. Let's say, yeah,
You shouldn't care about that. Like the model provider is going to do that. OpenAI, when they release the model, they're going to have a chart that has that on there. When Ulmo releases a model, when A12, which does the Ulmo models, releases a model, they're going to have that on there. Like that's your MMMUs,
yeah.
that's your GPQAs, that's your AMI 2025s, right?
Mm,
That's going to be like done for you. You shouldn't need to do that.
yeah.
Now, maybe you mean benchmarks like how fast it is, right? Because benchmarks can refer to capability and
Mm,
performance. Performance in this case meaning latency and time to first token, these kinds of things.
little classic benchmarking.
Yeah, you might want to benchmark that. You might care, right? So you might
Yeah,
worry
yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Which one's fastest on your hardware with whatever inference backend you're using. You might also mean like I've constructed this benchmark that I care about that measures some capability I'm very excited about. In which case you do need to
I don't know if I would
worry
call
about.
that a benchmark, though. Wouldn't you just call that an eval? Wouldn't you just like maybe hit
What
it
is
with the eval? Like,
what is a benchmark if not an evaluation, right? Like
oh yeah. I
that's
mean,
the real of it.
so when you say you constructed a benchmark, because we'll come back to this a little bit later, you mean like for your app and for your use case and for your users? Is that what you mean specifically, or you
You
mean
can,
something?
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's one of those words where you got to provide some context for people, right?
Mm,
Like you can't just say I measured it on this benchmark. It's like, what benchmark? Doing what
mm,
were you benchmarking, right?
yeah.
Like we benchmark our models on evaluations, right? Think of
Yeah.
the word. What does benchmark mean? It means place a mark at the correct spot where this exists. The benchmark
Yeah, yeah,
itself
yeah.
is separate from the process by which we achieve the benchmark. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And then we're seeing the domain specific ones too. So if you're working in a specific domain, should you be tracking these? As let's say like I care about healthcare or something. Is there going to be models that I should select that are open source that are just more naturally good at healthcare stuff that kind of give me a head start in my fine tuning or in their ability to like should I be paying attention to that level of kind of larger scale benchmarks if I am within a specific domain?
Uh, you someone's probably already produced some of this for you that you can just run
Yeah,
using a framework. But yeah, I would say that's
maybe.
a tough one. Maybe
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Okay. And then
creating these things is just so expensive. Okay, that's
okay,
what it comes
okay.
down to.
All
Yeah,
right. Okay. That's a good way to end it. Okay, I
yeah.
like that. And then in terms of the classic, the transformer, I heard some whisperings recently. They seem to be never ending. Oh, transformer is going to be upended, blah blah blah. We are seeing MOEs get
That's
some
right.
time in the sun this year. Is that the new standard versus the old dense transformer? Um, what's going on there, and is there anything new on the horizon we need to care about, or just basically the classic is probably, if we understand that, we're in a good spot?
Yes. Listen, I mean, this is even funnier now that Jan finally left Meta, right?
Yeah.
With him.
World models not in production today aside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that here's the thing. Okay? Here's the truth.
Yeah.
The reality. There's
Break it
no
down.
way the transformer is the architecture we would end up with in long term, right? It
Right.
makes no sense. Look at the course of human history. We've never nailed it perfectly the first time, absolutely, right?
Mm.
When we
Mm.
made carts, the first cart was kind of mid, right?
Mm.
Until we got better at making carts.
Yeah.
When we made planes, the first one famously
Oof.
not super great. And now
Yeah.
our plane's pretty rocking, man.
Yeah.
And they resemble the original plane. Okay. You can see the inspiration from the
Yeah.
OG plane in there somewhere, but
That's
it's
right.
not like the same beast,
Right.
And this is the idea of Transformer. Will Transformer be like the network that rules the world for eternity? Almost certainly not. Will components of the Transformer that we've built many systems around and
Yeah.
we've assumed into the organism that is a transformer already, like embeddings and like positional encoding and things like this. Maybe some of those things exist and still persist as we go forward. Maybe we add some extra flavoring, scaffolding, yada yada. The idea is that parts of the transformer will probably be used going forward, right? So, and for right now, for today, for as we sit here, it's still the absolute
Goated.
right? And when we look at something like Nano 9B V2, or we look at something like these mixture of expert model, yes, they're distinct architecturally, but they still rely on, in large part, things like attention, right? They still rely on a lot of the guts of the transformer. This is the idea. This is the whole idea, right? Is that the transformer, the bits and pieces of it are probably going to remain useful, not forever, okay, but for a long time.
For 2026?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
And again, if we move a little bit. We move one step at a time. Maybe JEPA comes out in 2026. Jan's proven right, and we never look back. But even JEPA has some familiar roots, right? That's the idea.
Okay. And then in terms of looking at shops next year, who are you looking at? I mean, obviously OpenAI, Anthropic, everybody knows. DeepSeek, probably everybody knows. Who else are you looking at? I heard NVIDIA was doing some cool stuff, but who else? Kimmy, who's worth paying attention to in terms of model shops?
Anthropic, OpenAI, of course.
Yeah, okay, we got
Moonshot, who's the Kimmy peeps.
Moonshot.
Alibaba, who's the Quen peeps, right? NVIDIA, who's the Nemotron peeps. Ulmo is coming out. There's also some new players we should maybe think to look at, which
Thinking
is like
machines. No.
Thinking machines, probably, but we don't really know yet.
We don't really know.
That they haven't yet stuck their stake in the ground. I mean, everything's pointing to that they will. So you should certainly have thinking machines on your radar. The conglomerate of RCAI, Datology, and Prime Intellect that are producing some models together very interestingly.
Up and comers.
Yeah, exactly. Up and comers. I think that's worth looking at, but the big ones are still the big ones. Meta still, their play for super intelligence is going to produce something at some point. Keep them on the radar.
I'm sure.
But like the big one, of course, Gemini, Google, the GM folks, all it's the same people, right? And this is
not Apple. Classic. Okay.
Yeah, not Apple. There's don't worry about Apple. But the idea is that like they have been amassing wealth this whole time. They've been amassing talent this whole time, and it makes sense that they're going to continue to produce really important artifacts. What I would say though is as we go forward, as we try to democratize more and more of the space, we're going to find ourselves looking at more players on the fringes, and I think that's a big deal. So like your DeepSeeks, your moonshots, these kinds of players, and then the RC trifecta, right? These kinds of players are going to continue to be important and push our space forward. It's just like they're probably not going to drop the hottest soda model on the market out of nowhere, more than once or twice a year, which is Anthropic, Google, and OpenAI are going to drop 6-7 times. They're gonna release a soda model. So
Great
that
insights.
pace is very different.
Yeah. I like that. I like that framing. Okay, so finally, let's wrap this section up. This is the biggest section we're going to cover today. How much should I really even care about the inside of these stupid LLMs if I'm just building applications with them? Do I really need to know?
I mean, no. I think in 2025 into 2026, we've got to know. You shouldn't care that much. Okay. I'll be honest with you.
There you are. You shouldn't care that much. And we have, just before we exit this section, no mention of Grok. Oh, what's that? Where's the Grok love? We got any Grok love, or what's the quick TLDR on Grok?
Grok's trying their best. Maybe 2026 will be their year. I assume, again, of the big shops like GDM, OpenAI, Anthropic, you're just gonna see them in the ecosystem. Having them on your radar is probably going to happen whether you want it to or not, especially with something like Grok, which is attached to social media. You'll hear about Grok if they do something cool.
Yeah. We all hear a lot about Grok. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Wiz. Let's go ahead and move to the next section today, which is on agents. So one of the things that's important to understand is that while we can scale reasoning with large reasoning models, of course, and with large LLMs, we can also scale reasoning with agents and agentic systems like the ones that we like to build in class with LangChain. And or any other agent framework that you've seen us cover on this channel, we've covered many in 2025. We're not going to talk about any of them because the agent frameworks are but a fleeting thought for when we look back on the whole year. When we think about agents, we like to define them as systems that can leverage or emulate reasoning, right, to make dynamic decisions in an application flow. And when we think about a multi-agent system, we can define it as a system that can leverage reasoning from multiple independent agents. So either way, we're sort of scaling out this test time compute. Now, the agent simply is just when we give the LLM access to tools. That is to say, when we give an LLM a tool, we call it an agent, okay? And this has been agreed upon this year by folks in the industry, including Simon Willison. An LLM agent runs tools in a loop to achieve a goal. This kind of reasoning action looping pattern that agents are was defined well a long time ago. And we've talked about this many times on this channel. Essentially, what we want to do is we want to think about how we can leverage these tools to connect our applications and therefore our users to the information we know they need or they want as they're using our app. And this idea of connecting people to the information through tools and through tooling that we know they need. We might also throw in a little MCP here, this new standard for connecting these things to systems where data lives. We've talked to enterprises this year, and some of them ask us about the specific set of equipment or tools that they can put in like a toolbox and have that in an MCP server and have it kind of set up and ready to go. But in the end, like, it's not just tools or MCP that kind of makes agents good. It's kind of like a lot of stuff. And this is all starting to fall under this umbrella of context engineering. And the idea of the looping instead of the being very directed with if else type classic AI. This is kind of the promise of agents in general. We can stop doing DAGs and we can get to kind of cyclic graphs. We've gone into the meta zone here though in 2025. Like as Claude Code found out, and as the researchers at Anthropic and even the people who work there found out, we can actually get real meta. Like anybody who can actually just describe a problem can now build a solution. And when we sort of talk about the higher level loop, we can start to look at things like the Claude Agent SDK, renamed from the Claude Code SDK loop, where gathering context is just one step in the chain. Evals is another step in the chain. And there's all sorts of actions we can take in the middle. And, whether they're code gen, whether they're tools, whether they're MCP servers, whatever. But the gathering of context has a lot of interesting pieces as well as the eval stuff that we've covered all this on this channel throughout the year. When we see like agentic search in the file system and sub-agents, we see that this looks a lot like the deep agents framework that was primarily inspired by Claude Code that LangChain put out. So we're seeing a lot of convergence here with how agents have kind of entered the meta zone. And, when we talk about giving the agent access to a file system, one of the things that we're starting to see start to emerge here that seems to be indicative of where this is headed is we're going to kind of get these really kind of nicely contextualized nested files that can be kind of rolled out as needed during agent recursive loops. And this is like the idea of agent skills, came out last month from Anthropic, and we covered it, on this channel as well, where you just have this very simple markdown file and markdown files and markdown files and markdown files. You can kind of get this progressive disclosure of the right context at the right time. And this is the whole thing with context engineering. We want to own and minimize the context. We want to actively manage it, and we want to not put too much garbage in. There's just so much happening. There's a couple other things worth mentioning, which is like the agent tooling that's been coming out. One of the newest things is actually being able to build these things in a lower code way. And this kind of connects very much to the vibes and all of that as well. And then, as mentioned a couple times already, we have this kind of more systematic measurement that we're wanting to do a lot of the times when we talk about evaluations, how we can effectively align our AI system towards its goals. And at the same time, we should understand that really the way we design and build AI apps is very much in its infancy, like, Wiz was talking about with the transformer before. So Wiz, the second discussion series here, when we think about, agents and multi-agent systems, last year we were kind of talking about, I shouldn't really build multi-agent systems. I don't really know what you would do with that right now. But now it kind of seems like, well, to manage context, to kind of do, maybe we need more agents to do that, and we can do it in an intelligent way. Like when we go out and we build our first or second or third or 10th app next year for our company, should we be like kind of defaulting to multi-agent systems that leverage RAG and agents, or should we still be kind of focusing on the atomic unit of what we can build simple as possible to solve the problem?
You know what? It's tough because the answer to this question is all of the above. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know at all if there is a specific satisfying answer to this question, other than you should be building what works. And sometimes you will find that what works is pushing to a little bit more complex, right, into the multi-agent paradigm. That's not always true, though. Sometimes that's not good. And, you wind up building an app that's horribly inefficient, and, there's no need for it to be a multi-agent. But, I mean, we see many people producing systems that leverage multi-agent systems. So listen, it's just like, should I build a microservice, or should I just build like a small app? Should I build a monolith, right? Should I build? The answer is it wholly depends on what you're trying to achieve. What your resources are, where you see this going in the future. I'm still going to be on the side of small composable blocks are better than big, messy, constructs. But at some point, you have a lot of small composable blocks, and because you have small composable blocks, you compose them together into a large structure, and now suddenly you've got a big, large composed structure. Right?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And then, because they're kind of a little bit monolith, a little bit decentralized at the same time here.
That's right.
Okay, so it depends.
It depends. Our behind the scenes guy Jacob is now many times heard that phrase.
It depends deep. Yeah. So let's just keep moving here because what about MCP? I mean, I've been hearing people ask about it, and it seems like enterprise wants it. Should we be defaulting to using it in our apps? Let's say I'm not even going to build a multi-agent. I'm just going to build a single agent, right? And but I want to give it an MCP server instead of some lame, just regular old tools because it'd be dope.
Yes. I'm of the mind that you should not be by default leveraging MCP. Okay. Now, this doesn't mean that's always right or always true, okay? What it does mean is that I don't think we should think about MCP until deeper into our development cycle. I think this idea that we should just by default always use MCP is it's too
it's USB. I mean? Of course I'm going to use USB. What are you talking about?
Yeah, sure. Of course, every time. But what I would say is most important here is don't just use MCP to check a box. If you are building a system and then you say, well, I want my users to be able to attach this system to any tool that they could possibly dream of, that sounds like exactly why we need MCP, right? Or if I'm building a system and that data collection system is meant to be consumed by other people on my team, and able to equip their agents with this knowledge, then I'm going to want to build an MCP server for that, right? Of course. I just don't think we should start from this assumption that
it's not the default.
Definitely gonna be MCPing it up, friendos. No, but you might.
But if boss asks for MCP and multi-agents, then it should be the default.
Well, you should talk to boss about the trade-offs in both engineering effort. You should stick up for the best technology and the best solution, and not just build something as boss says to do it. Though that's tempting, you'll find long term, you and boss will stop seeing eye to eye pretty quickly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, when that ROI doesn't come in,
that's
or
right.
when the S and MCP starts acting up.
Yeah, boss man's not going to say, I take responsibility for making you build this. He's going to say, hey, why the heck did you let me do that? That was insane.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, 100%. Okay, so when we think about this idea of context engineering, we've talked about it a lot. Context engineering, everything is context, blah, blah, blah. Because everything is context, is this particularly useful for people to be thinking about as they're building applications? Or is it more of a nice kind of conceptual idea, but doesn't really affect the way we build? How do you think about this?
Yes, it's a useful abstraction for builders, period. I don't think there's anything that you can say counter to that I would agree with.
Yeah.
You can say very specific things that, of course, make this untrue. But I think generally, this is a great way to think about it. This is a great mental model to have. Our job is to modify context. Context is the thing that goes into and comes out of the LLM. So, of course, it's a useful way to think about it. Everything is context is a useful way to think about it, right? Everything that I do is going to impact a context window in some way, and I should think about that impact, right? It's not just prompting. It's like the way we set up tools, the way we describe things, the way we write the actual code, the systems, and how they transmit information between each other, right? All of these things impact context. And so I do think it's useful to have like one catch-all term that roots us in that all the time. Context engineering is that.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly useful abstraction.
Yeah. Okay, because the agent is just an LLM with access to stuff. So in the end, we're coming back into the LLMs, and this is the interesting thing, right? We asked earlier, should we actually care about what's going on inside of LLMs? Well, we should care about the context that's flowing through them, but maybe that's the extent of it. Like the gasoline we put in the tank, but we don't need to know how the engine works, kind of like this.
Exactly.
Okay. So then finally, in terms of evaluation, we already kind of talked about this a little bit. We should care about this insofar as we've done the work to create evaluation test sets around our applications. These, we might consider these to be our benchmarks. We might consider these to be our evals, our benchmarks. I forget what other words we used earlier, but these are the things that we should be kind of focused on. It's not going to be the solution to everything. This eval, if you can do it by hand, that's dope. If you need to use some synthetic data generation, okay, just do it smartly. What other best practices are you taking away from 2025? Everybody talking so much about evals. Are we able to do evals with agents and multi-agent systems yet? What are we able to do evals with today?
Yeah, we can do evals with everything. It's just like what should you do evals with, I guess, is the big problem. It's not a problem. It's like, how much do we want to spend on evals is the question.
All right? It always comes back to the cost. Yeah.
Like you can use LLM as a judge for everything. You can use very complex agentic systems to evaluate I hate this part of the conversation.
I heard it was scalable if you use LLM as a judge.
When what I say is you could use agents to evaluate your systems, but you must first know if those agents are robust and accurate. So you have to evaluate those agents. And then we wind up doing the classic thing of climbing this evaluation chain into infinity. And so really, maybe you shouldn't be using agents to evaluate your systems yet. But you should evaluate on golden data as much as you can, which is actual customer interactions through which they provided feedback, right? Either implicit feedback like regenerations, or explicit feedback like thumbs up, thumbs down, or text if it's possible. And you should evaluate often, and you should not just ship and do no evaluation. Using tools like using tools like LangGraph, evaluators, or Ragus can help you, right? So you should leverage tools where possible, but evaluation is more than just the tool. It's an idea of we have some way that we think our application should work, and then we're trying to measure if it does work that way, or if it works in ways that are cringe or undesired.
Okay. And then finally, when we talk about agents, are we ready to throw away the stupid AI engineering term and just go all in on agent engineering next year, Wiz? It's pretty hot and people are saying it. Should we just brand ourselves as agent engineers now? What's your thought on agent engineering in 2026? I guess I believe that it's just a subset of AI engineering, and probably better to stay broad. What do you think?
I agree. The only issue I have with AI engineering is that it's got two meanings, which is that it is I engineer the AI, which is what we mean, or it means I engineer leveraging AI, which is not what we mean, right? Like AI engineer is the engineer that works on the AI. But we have SWEs and data scientists and front-end developers who are like, I use Cursor. I'm using AI to help me engineer. and like AI powered engineers, right? The idea that it's agent engineering, though, moves us so deep into the agent space that we forget the simplicity and the power of all these really basic, straightforward patterns that have nothing to do with agents and never will.
Chew on that, everybody. Okay, let's get into the last piece here, Wiz. Vibe coding. Time to introduce it. Let's go ahead and connect everybody back to that agent skills idea, right? And what Wiz was just talking about here, this idea of people who are building tools to help us do engineering, like AI assist of our typical software engineering. This is where kind of vibe coding comes in. And one of the things that we've actually seen a lot, and we're having some open questions we have to figure out the answers to in our particular class, is how do we actually deal with the idea of the agent doing so much for you, like cursor rules, giving these system level instructions, so you actually don't have to understand Git flows anymore. You actually don't have to understand how to actually do assignments anymore. You don't have to actually understand how any of the code works anymore. These tools are so good. Claude Code, Codex, Cognition's Devin. Of course, they acquired Windsurf as well. We're seeing competitors like Manus step up. Everybody's raising a ton of cash everywhere. And, when we look at kind of the overall state of vibe coding, this is a report released by Vercel, the creators of the Next.js framework built on top of React. Very, very good at front ends and great tools that they've put out for both building front ends and shipping applications with simple vibes. They had this hilarious chart, early 2010s, talking about low code, no code, bubble, Airtable, retool. And then, 2024, Cursor's Composer after GitHub's Copilot in 2021. And then 2025 is just out of control, like stuff everywhere. And they kind of talk about, there's these trad developers and then the vibe coding developers and the people who speak English, who know how coding works, who don't have experience but are willing to problem solve. These are up and comers here. Now, at the same time, we can look at what some experts that we all respect are saying, like Andre Karpathy. I do feel like the agents work in very specific settings, and I would use them in specific settings. But these are all tools available to you, and you have to learn what they're good at, what they're not good at, when to use them. One specific example, NanoChat, if you heard of this that he put out recently, is not a good example because it's fairly unique. It's not a lot of boilerplate code. It's intellectually intense, and everything has to be precisely arranged. The models, the coding agents, they keep misunderstanding. They have too much memory from all these typical ways of doing things on the internet. They keep thinking I'm writing normal code, and I'm not. They keep trying to mess up the style. They're way too defensive. They make all these try-catch statements. They keep thinking I'm trying to make this production code base. And I'm not trying to do that right now. So don't act like that. They're bloating it. They're bloating the complexity. They're using deprecated APIs a bunch of times. It's just not useful. Wiz, when we think about coding agents, first off, are these secretly creating all the value in AI today? This is what people like Swix are saying. And I'm finding this a pretty convincing argument that they are creating most of the value today. What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, they're creating a lot of value. Okay, so let's be clear that there's a ton of value. But I mean, there's also a ton of chatbots like Rag. That's creating immeasurable value across all segments,
And
right?
classic ML, I guess.
Classic
right?
ML for days, dude. If people think that XGBoost is gone just because we have LLMs, they're losing their minds, right? It's creating a lot of value, and I think that it can create the creation of value easier than other use cases, right? Because we can create businesses with this. We can create entire systems that make value instead of just you doing the first order step. So maybe long term this is true, but for right now,
maybe when all these trad developers are replaced by the Vivity vibe coding.
That's right.
Okay, so how much vibe coding, Wiz, should we be doing in our daily work? You did this thing last week, I believe, where you were like, and I kind of vibe this and I vibe that. And like, I did these try catches, like we heard from Andre. And like, how much is okay today and tomorrow?
Yeah. I'm gonna just hot take it straight out the gate here. None. You should never vibe code your work. Okay. Now, why? That's first of all, that's obviously cringe to say.
I mean, it sounds good when you say it like your work. I like
that's right. That's right. Okay.
Why though? Why?
I don't know if this is a hot take in 2020, late 2025. Okay. But I don't want to tell my manager, my CEO, my customers.
That's right. That's
right.
I
have no idea what the code does. I just vibed it out, bro. You know what I mean? I just vibed that stuff out. I said, LLM, make this, and it did. You know, no way. If someone comes to me and says, why does it do this? Why does it work this way? Why did you make this trade-off? I don't want to say, I've got no idea. You should just hire an ace suite. You know what I mean? Like, I want to say, I know why. You know, I know why try accepts are good. I don't want to write them because I'm like lazy, right? I don't want to write some 30 key presses required to wrap my code in a try accept block, but I know it's good. I know why it's good. I know why exception handling is something important that we should consider, right? You should not vibe code at all in your daily work. It's great for weekend projects. It's great for like, I'm cooking something on the background. You know, I just want this fun toy application. Let's go. Let's go. You know, yes. Okay, fine. That's vibe coding. Let's go. That sounds really exciting and interesting. Karpathy's original creation of vibe coding, remember, was for fun. It was like a fun weekend thing. I'll just like yap into my computer and suddenly an application pops out, right? It's never meant to be taken seriously or as like a B2B SaaS builder, right? It's just for fun. You should use AI assisted development where you're in control. You're the one calling the shots. You know why the lines of code are entering your code base. You can explain them in natural language to stakeholders. You have thought about the trade-offs or at least understand the trade-offs and are okay with them. You know, all of this is to say, please don't just vibe everything. You're going to get, I mean, we use this term, you know, from Greg, unautomatable. You will be automatable if all you can do is vibe code because the agent does that just well enough, you know?
That's right. So the CTO coming down and saying, what does that code do? That's the image you want to keep in your mind when you write code, that you can answer it. And if you can't, you deserve to be fired. Speaking of, let's talk about ROI and your job. Your boss expects it and expects you not to be replaced by AI. So Wiz, just stick with me here. We have seen things like deep research start to be very automatable as coding assisted. Quantum Black released a thing last week. This is the McKinsey AI consulting thing. And they basically said, here's what we learned from asking all of our people. They said, you know, a lot of people are experimenting. Everybody loves agents. Some people are making revenue, workflows over agency. No one knows what the hell's going on with employment. But they said high performers drive everything. Okay. They drive everything. So apart from being able to answer the, this is what my code does question, how can we all avoid staying unautomatable and really avoid getting laid off or get the job and keep it, in 2026. Like, I will say for myself as the CEO of a company, I need to compete with all the other CEOs doing all the other companies. I mean, and so like the standard for a CEO is now you're not only good at one or two things, but you're good at 5, 6, 7 things maybe with AI assist. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I got to be a step ahead of all of them because they're going to eat my lunch and take my business. You know, when you think about, yourself, Wiz, how are you? Because you're picking up. I don't write a lot of code, so I feel pretty safe from some of these tools, but I know our audience writes a lot of code and so do you. I mean, how do you think about balancing writing a lot of code with AI assist and being somebody that is just no shot you're going to get automated?
You just have to stay in your lane. Like a lot, like heavily. I don't know a better way to say this without taking the next 17 years to explain it, but like,
Yeah.
pick the thing that you're really good at. You're uniquely good at, and continue to get much better at that thing, right? And if that thing is writing code, the best in the world, you're going to stay ahead of the LLM. If that thing is communicating to people about technical ideas, you're going to stay ahead of the. But you have to pick the things that you're great at and continuing to triple, quadruple down on them. There is no world where you should just give in to the LLM and just let it produce all of your content. You should continue to hone those skills. And if you don't, you will be subsumed by the machine.
Yeah, you've already automated yourself at that point.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's a wild world we're heading into. Like, we can also sort of just end on that. We can kind of conclude on that. It's like this is a crazy time in like the history of humanity that's happening right now. And as coders, we're kind of out on the edge of what's coming for everybody later. And we can see it heading into 2026 where maybe it's not going to come for everybody else for a little while, but like, man, we got to figure out, what is our lane? What is the thing we're best at? How are we going to take it to the next level using AI assist? Go all in on leveraging the tools, but leveraging them the right way, not handing over our jobs to them before management, before the CTO, before they notice, and then come layoff time, you're smoked. All right. Easy. That's all we got to do. Stay ahead of the AI, baby.
That's all.
Humans over AI all day. All right. Wiz, thanks for your insights as always. That's a great place to wrap it up. This has been fun. State of AI Engineering 2025. I look forward to doing it again next year with you.
Let's go.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us at AI Makerspace for another weekly Wednesday workshop. This one, kind of a special one. This one was the State of AI Engineering 2025. We hope you found it useful. We are on a mission at AI Makerspace to create the world's leading community for people like you who want to build, ship, and share production LLM applications. If you're not yet in our Discord community, we'd love for you to join. A bunch of cool, competent practitioners building, shipping, and sharing every day. Next week, we've got a great YouTube workshop planned. This is going to cover all the latest and greatest in LangChain 1.0, LangGraph 1.0, the name changes, how Langsmith kind of started to take over LangGraph platform name, all the good stuff. And we'd love for you to join us there. It should be a well-attended event. Also, tomorrow, live, you are invited to join us for the AI Engineering Bootcamp's demo day. Cohort 8 is ready to absolutely crush it. If you want to check out the specific projects that we're going to be showing and that students have prepared, check out the run of show directly in the chat. And that's all we got for you today, folks. Until next year, I guess, stay unautomatable. And until next time, keep building, shipping, and sharing. And we'll do the same. See you soon, everybody.